I never thought the woman I married, the one who once swore to stand by me through thick and thin, would one day turn against my family because of a man we both trusted. But life has a way of showing you that not everyone who wears the holy robe is truly from God. It all started after I lost my job. At first, my wife Chioma stood by me. We prayed together, hoping for a breakthrough. But as months passed and nothing changed, her attitude started shifting. At first, it was small things: sighs, cold replies, silence where there used to be laughter. Then, one day, she started treating my mother, Mama Ngozi, with an unusual kind of hostility. I didn't understand it at first. My mother had always loved Chioma like her own daughter. But suddenly, my wife stopped greeting her properly, refused to eat her food, and even whispered to her friends whenever Mama Ngozi was around. One evening, I finally asked her, "Chioma, what is happening? Why are you behaving like this towards my mother?" She looked at me, her arms folded. "You want to know the truth, Emeka?" "Yes." She took a deep breath, then said something that nearly made me fall to the ground. "Your mother is a witch, Emeka. She is the reason you lost your job. She is the reason nothing is working in your life." I blinked at her, confused. "Chioma, who told you this nonsense?" She hesitated, then said in a lower voice, "Pastor Jacob." I stood up immediately. "Pastor Jacob? The same Pastor Jacob we have been supporting all these years? The one who eats in this house like a family member?" "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "He told me everything. He said he has been praying and fasting for us, and God revealed it to him. Your mother is the reason for your suffering." I felt something break inside me. I turned away from her, my hands shaking. How could she believe such a thing? My mother, the woman who raised me, the woman who always prayed for us. But Chioma had already made up her mind. From that day on, she refused to visit my mother. She stopped my sisters from coming to the house. If I dared to speak in my mother's defense, she would become angry. I knew I had to find the truth. Something about Pastor Jacob's words didn't sit well with me. He was a man we trusted, but I was beginning to see that trust can be misplaced. What did he really want? Why would he turn my own wife against my family? I had to find out, and I had to act fast before I lost everything. I could not sleep that night. My wife, Chioma, had turned her back on my mother and my sisters, all because of Pastor Jacob. The man we once saw as a spiritual guide was now tearing my family apart. I needed to act, but I had to be smart about it. If I confronted Pastor Jacob directly, he would twist my words. If I forced Chioma to listen to me, she would resist even more. So, I decided to do something else. I would investigate. The next day, I went to see my mother. She was sitting outside her small house, peeling yam. The moment she saw me, her face brightened. "Emeka, my son, welcome," she said with joy. I sat beside her and sighed. "Mama, Chioma, she believes you are the reason for my problems." Mama Ngozi paused, then let out a deep sigh. "I know, my son. I can see it in her eyes whenever she looks at me. She no longer greets me with warmth." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Mama, I don't believe it, but I don't know how to make her see the truth." She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "The truth will always reveal itself, my son. Just be patient." That night, I went to Pastor Jacob's house unannounced. I wanted to catch him off guard. I knocked, and after a while, he opened the door. He was surprised to see me. "Brother Emeka, what brings you here at this hour?" "I just need to talk, Pastor," I said, forcing a smile. I noticed something strange. He was nervous. His hands kept shaking and he wouldn't look me in the eye. "Pastor, I have been thinking a lot about what you told Chioma," I said, "about my mother being the cause of my misfortune." He nodded. "Yes, my brother. The Spirit revealed it to me." I leaned forward. "Pastor, how exactly did the Spirit speak to you?" He blinked. "Oh, I saw it in a vision." "What kind of vision?" He cleared his throat. A very clear vision. I smiled. Pastor, I have prayed too, and God revealed something different to me. His eyes widened. What? What did he reveal? I paused, then said, that someone is lying. For the first time, he looked afraid. His lips trembled, but he quickly forced a laugh. Brother Emeka, are you questioning the man of God? I stood up. No, Pastor. I am questioning the man I trusted as a friend. There was silence. Then I asked, tell me the truth, Pastor. What do you really want from my wife? His face changed instantly. His fake humility disappeared. He stared at me for a long moment, then smirked. You are smarter than I thought. I clenched my fist. You lied to my wife just to turn her against my family. Why? He laughed, shaking his head. Because a woman like Chioma deserves better than you. She should be with a man who can give her more. A man like me. Rage boiled inside me. You are a disgrace to the name of God, he shrugged. And yet, she believes me. I took a deep breath. Not for long. I walked out of his house, my heart racing. Now I had proof. But how would I make Chioma see the truth? I needed a plan, and I needed one fast. I walked home that night with a fire burning inside me. Pastor Jacob had confessed everything, his lies, his plans, his selfish desire for my wife. But that was not enough. Chioma had to see it with her own eyes, hear it with her own ears. I thought carefully about my next move. If I simply told Chioma what I had discovered, she might not believe me. Pastor Jacob had already poisoned her mind against me and my family. So, I decided to set a trap. The next morning, I acted as if nothing had happened. I greeted Chioma warmly, helped her with small chores, and even joked with her. She was still cold towards me, but I ignored it. That evening, I sat beside Chioma in the living room. My love, I have been thinking about what Pastor Jacob said, I began. She turned to me, interested. You mean about your mother? I nodded. Yes, he might be right. Maybe my mother is the reason for my struggles. Chioma sat up, her eyes widening. You finally understand? I sighed. But I need proof. I was thinking, what if we ask Pastor Jacob to pray over me again? Maybe he can reveal more. She smiled, clearly pleased. That's a good idea. He will guide you properly. I pretended to be relieved. Thank you, my love. I will call him now. I dialed Pastor Jacob's number, putting the call on speaker. Pastor, good evening, I said. Brother Emeka, how are you? His voice was full of false concern. I am well, Pastor. I have been thinking about what you told my wife. I want us to meet again so you can pray for me personally. Pastor Jacob chuckled. Now you understand. I have been praying for you already. Let's meet tomorrow at my house. Perfect, I said. Also, Chioma and I will come together. She needs to hear the prayer too. He hesitated. Oh, both of you? Yes, Pastor. She is my wife, and she deserves to hear everything. There was a long pause. Then he laughed nervously. All right then. I will see you both tomorrow. The next day, Chioma and I arrived at Pastor Jacob's house as planned. Pastor Jacob welcomed us, acting as if he were a true man of God. He held Chioma's hand longer than necessary, smiling at her in a way that made my blood boil. My children, today we will pray for deliverance, he announced. Chioma, you must stay strong because Emeka's family will fight you spiritually. Chioma nodded eagerly. That's when I spoke. Pastor, before we pray, I have a question. He frowned. Go ahead, my son. I looked him in the eye. If my mother is really a witch, why didn't she stop me from marrying Chioma? Why did she support me when I lost my job? Pastor Jacob stammered. Oh, sometimes witches pretend. And if she wanted me to suffer, Why is she still praying for me every day? Chioma shifted uncomfortable. I could see doubt creeping into her eyes. Pastor Jacob forced a smile. My son, faith does not need questions. Just believe. I leaned forward. Pastor, let me ask one last thing. Why do you care so much about my wife? His face changed instantly. The fake kindness disappeared. Because she deserves better than you, he muttered under his breath. Chioma gasped. Pastor, what did you just say? He realized his mistake and quickly covered his mouth. No, my daughter. You meant exactly what you said. I cut in. You wanted to separate her from my family so you could have her all to yourself. Chioma's eyes filled with confusion and fear. That's not true. Is it, Pastor? Pastor Jacob's face turned pale. Chioma turned to me, tears forming in her eyes. Emeka! Is this true? I nodded. I visited him last night. He confessed everything. Chioma's hands trembled. Pastor! You lied to me? Pastor Jacob tried to speak, but words failed him. Chioma's face crumpled with pain and regret. She turned to me. Oh God, what have I done? I remained silent, watching her as the truth sank in. Chioma stood frozen, her face pale as if she had seen a ghost. Her lips trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes. She turned slowly to Pastor Jacob, who was now sweating and shifting uneasily in his seat. You lied to me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Pastor Jacob tried to smile, but it came out crooked. Chioma, my daughter, you are misunderstanding the situation. I only wanted to protect you from evil influences. Chioma took a step back. Evil influences? You mean my husband's mother? I could see the battle going on in her heart. The guilt, the regret, the anger. But most of all, I saw betrayal. The man she had trusted so much had used her. She turned to me, tears rolling down her cheeks. Emeka, I have wronged you. I swallowed hard, trying to hold back my own emotions. Yes, Chioma, you have. She fell to her knees. Forgive me. Please. I allowed myself to be deceived. I let an outsider poison my heart against my own family. I sighed deeply. Chioma, I won't lie to you. What you did hurt me. It hurt my mother. It hurt my sisters. But you were manipulated. You were blinded by trust. I helped her to her feet. This is a lesson we must all learn. Not everyone who calls themselves a man of God is truly from God. Some come only to destroy homes and families. Chioma nodded. I see it now. She turned to Pastor Jacob, her eyes burning with fury. And you are devil in disguise. Pastor Jacob raised his hands in fake surrender. Chioma, don't be foolish. I am still a man of God. Chioma shook her head. True man of God builds families, not destroys them. We should expose him. Let the church know the kind of man he truly is. Pastor Jacob's face turned dark. You dare to challenge me? I have been a pastor for years. Who will believe you over me? I chuckled. Oh, they will believe us because I recorded everything you said last night. His mouth fell open. What? I pulled out my phone. Every word, every confession, you have nothing to deny. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. Please, Emeka, let's talk like men. I shook my head. No need for more talking. The truth will speak for itself. A few days later, the truth spread like wildfire. The church elders called for an emergency meeting, and Pastor Jacob was stripped of his position. Many people came forward with stories of how he had manipulated them, twisting God's word for his selfish gain. As for Chioma and me, healing took time, but she humbled herself, went to my mother, and begged for forgiveness. Mama, with a heart full of grace, embraced her and said, "A home divided against itself cannot stand. You are my daughter, Chioma. Let's build again." And that was the greatest lesson we learned. Family is sacred. It should never be broken by outsiders, no matter how holy they appear. Trust is a beautiful thing, but it must be given wisely. Not everyone who enters your home comes with good intentions. Some come dressed as angels but are devils at heart. May we always be careful of the voices we allow into our marriages, our homes, and our hearts. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe if you want more stories like this. Thank you for watching.